It's easy to think, oh, I want to learn something Jewish, so let me learn about Shabbos or kosher, or really Judaism is not just specific things like that. Being Jewish is all-encompassing in who we are and our worldview and how we parent our children as well. So there are Jewish principles, which honestly are very much in line with many of today's general parenting principles.
Every day, we are blessed to interact with some of Colorado's most interesting people. On this podcast, Judaism with Altitude, we share their fascinating stories with you, and
we have a great time.
Welcome back to Judaism with Altitude. It's been a minute, and we're sorry.
But if you're still catching up on your podcasts, and now you're up to this, then that works out great.
Works out great for you, but for everyone else who was anxiously waiting, you kept refreshing the podcast app every day or two, just waiting for the next episode. For those of you who are waiting anxiously for the next podcast, we're sorry. And we are committed to try to bring you more engaging, life-changing content every week. Please God, we hope to record every week and become much more regular. So we're back.
We're back.
And we thought today we would talk about something that recently we experienced in our life, a very beautiful moment. And in general, I would say that we are going to try to be having guests as well on this podcast. But today it's just us. And we had something the other day. We made a little celebration. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that celebration that we made as a family the other day?
Yes. So we are so blessed that we were able to celebrate the birthday of our 3-year-old son in a very special Jewish way called an upsherin. So we've been growing his hair out for 3 years.
Just like me.
Never touched once by scissors. And he had a beautiful, gorgeous, blonde and brown, curly head of hair.
Speaking of beautiful, gorgeous hair, would you want to tell everyone who's watching this, if you're listening, you can't see this, but if you're watching this, why aren't you seeing a big, vibrant beard from me like usual?
Because we just had Purim.
We had Purim. So what does that mean?
Okay, so Purim, I don't know, I thought this would be more fitting for you to explain.
Oh, I could explain.
Go for it.
On Purim, we try to show our real self. We try to become our real selves. And we dress up. So in Purim, I actually have a little custom in which I leave nothing more than a nice handlebar mustache. And so I was rocking on Purim a handlebar mustache. And it was actually nice because Purim this year went into Shabbos. And on Shabbos, we don't trim beards or cut hair or whatever. So I was left with the handlebar mustache on Shabbos. And then it was Sunday, and I didn't have work yet. So I went ahead and trimmed the handlebars off, but I still had the mustache. And it was delightful and amazing. And now I'm just growing back the beard, which is why you don't see the beautiful, vibrant beard in all of its glory like you usually do.
Thanks for explaining. That's actually a perfect segue, because part of that dressing up on Purim is about acknowledging that we all wear masks in our lives. And on Purim, we try to connect to that true inner, authentic self. So too, how does this relate to our topic?
I don't know.
Okay, follow me for a minute. We're going to get there. Okay. So back to our son. So we didn't cut his hair for 3 years. And in celebration of his 3rd birthday, he gets a haircut. So we got together. We made him a little birthday party. We got his haircut. And now it's very special because 3-year-old boys take on wearing a yarmulke and tzitzis. Tzitzis are those fringes they wear under their shirt, those little strings hanging down. And so it's a very special occasion and something that he was definitely looking forward to and is so excited about this new stage. In honor of this, we thought it would be appropriate just to take a few minutes to do a short podcast, a little bit about parenting, because in Judaism, it's easy to think, oh, I want to learn something Jewish, so let me learn about Shabbos or kosher. Or really, Judaism is not just specific things like that. Being Jewish is all encompassing in who we are, in our worldview, and how we parent our children as well. So there are Jewish principles, which honestly are very much in line with many of today's general parenting principles also. But we wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about parenting a little bit. Now, before you say, I'm not in that parsha, as we say, yet, or I don't have kids yet, or my kids are so little, what does the difference make? Or I don't have kids, in whatever capacity this that you believe this does not relate to you. I think part of this is not just dealing with kids, although yeah, that's a big part of it. Also, it's the inner work that goes into ourselves, whether we're parenting our own inner child or we're preparing ourselves to one day be parents or maybe grandparents or to work with kids in any other capacity. It's really relevant in all of that. So,
And I think a lot of the principles are true of just regular relationships between humans as well, not just necessarily parent-child. But I think it is applicable across the board for people wherever they might be in life.
beautiful. Thanks for adding that in.
Great. Okay, so where to begin? I think the way that I was envisioning today going is that we'll just drop a few principles on you. And yeah, so maybe I'll begin.
And it's almost daunting to start because there's so much that we could talk about and we're not going to get into, but we're going to just go with a few basic principles and whet your appetite a little bit, because if you're interested for more, there's really so much out there. There's so many amazing, approachable Jewish books on this topic, on relationships, on character development, and amazing Jewish books and mentors and coaches and influencers. Really, there's so many places you could go for more information as well.
Beautiful. Before we jump in, I did want to give a strong plug to Am Yisrael Chai, an amazing slate on the World Zionist Organization election going on right now. We strongly support Am Yisrael Chai. They're doing amazing work for the youth, for college kids on campuses dealing with anti-Semitism, young professional communities who have young people waking up and realizing they're Jewish and wanting to connect and needing support. And Am Yisrael Chai is at the forefront of supporting those communities. We don't just say Am Yisrael Chai, we live it too. Okay, sorry. That was just a shameless plug there. The first thing I think that I wanted to elaborate on is there's something called I don't know what it's called, but it's something along the lines of like a 3 out of 4 rule.
80-20 rule.
80-20 rule. Thank you. A 4 out of 5 rule, where every 5 interactions you have with a child, 4 of them, for you math buffs there, that's 80%. 80% of those interactions should be positive. This is a rule brought down in parenting literature, I believe, very much advocated by, what's her name?
Sarah Chana Radcliffe.
Yes, my fave. Sarah Chana Radcliffe. It's very important that our interactions with our children are overwhelmingly positive. So even if I have to ask my kids something that's not mean, I ask them, would you please hang up your backpack when you come home? That's not mean, but that would not count as one of the 4 positive ones. So if I say that, I need now 4 positive. Would you please put your backpack away? Wow, you look so good today. You're such a special human. Your friends are so lucky that they have such a good friend in your life, and you make me so happy. You get the idea, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So again, we don't need to like overemphasize like the physical like beauty of the child either, because you don't want them to think that their worth is tied into that. That's a separate thing. So that wasn't the best one to start off with. But it's so important to be positive with your kids. You know, when you think about what kind of household you would like to grow up in, if you're constantly, God forbid, told that you're inadequate or you're not good or it's never enough or it's negative, clean that and do this. And it's always a list of things that you should be doing better than you're doing. It's not going to feel great in building up your self-esteem and your self-confidence and your sense of self. So we as parents need to be very careful to try to do our utmost to have overwhelmingly positive interactions with our kids. This is very hard, especially maybe you have a young kid. It's like so easy, of course. The older they get, the harder it gets. I promise you.
Also, the toddler stage could be
Right, the kids
hard
like
when they need
ripping things,
instruction. Yeah.
they're taking things out of the cabinet, and you're just so frustrated. Like, dude, just stop that. No, like, good job, keep going.
Or, I mean, I always like to think why. I think this relates to that because it's easy to just look what a kid is doing and give them instructions. But why is the kid ripping everything out of the cabinets? Is it because they want attention? Is it because they want to play with you in the kitchen and their toys are in the other room? Is it because they're feeling some inner chaos or anguish that maybe they need it to express a little bit? And if you talk to them about it, you could help them with that. So I think it's really yes. And Sarah Connor Radcliffe talks about this in one of her many, many books called Raise Your Kids Without Raising Your Voice. And many books talk about this principle also in general. I think it's pretty well known, but sometimes in day-to-day life it can be challenging, but to stop and take time and like you said, in any relationship, think about how you're interacting with anyone. And is it like listen to your thoughts or your words? And is it more predominantly positive? Or is there a lot of negative and instructions in there? And yes, even instructions, like you said, are negative because it's saying that you need to do more to be worthy and improvement and growth is good and it's important, but it needs to be balanced.
Yeah, and I think, in my humble opinion, this is probably one of the most important things in a marriage, also. Right? If 4 out of 5 of your interactions with your spouse are positive, it's probably going to be pretty happy.
She actually says by marriage it should be 90-10.
90-10, okay.
Because you're 2 adults and you have a choice.
There you
Whereas
go.
kids are kind of stuck with you.
Okay, there you go. But even more so, right? It's if you're in a relationship where just constantly negative, that's a sad existence. Whereas if it's constantly positive, that's like a joyful, blissful existence. So thank you for being so great.
You too.
I love what you said earlier. Also, I was thinking that
What?
about trying to figure out we're modeling what this looks like. Yeah, I'm praising her. But if a kid is ripping things out of the cabinet, like what's going on there? Like think about it. It's very insightful. I'm not always so good at that. So that was very good. Okay. The second one I wanted to talk about, you alluded to actually, with another title of Sarah Radcliffe's books, Sarah Connor Radcliffe, called Raising Your Kids Without Raising Your Voice. That was actually my second point I wanted to make, is I believe a critical foundation in raising children in chinuch and also human relationships is to do so without raising your voice. Do so without getting mad and angry. And if you want to make a child feel worthless, then it's probably a good idea to raise your voice at them and to yell at them. If you want them to feel loved and secure and confident, and to speak nicely to them. And actually, along those lines, another, I think, principle of educating our children and raising our children is how we speak to each other as parents, right? If you want to build up a child who feels confident and comfortable, then they probably don't hear their parents yelling at each other much. Whereas if you have screaming going on between the parents, like that would probably be a horrific feeling for a child, feeling vulnerable, feeling unsafe, and very uneasy. And I think in raising a healthy child, it's important how we speak, the volume with which we speak, both to the child and to one's spouse. Yeah.
That reminds me of something actually we just spoke about in this past week's Parsha, and the week before that, and the week before that, and next week we're talking about building this tabernacle, this resting place for God in our world. And I heard it referenced by Rabbi Foreman going back to creation, that God spent 6 days creating this whole environment before bringing us into existence, creating this whole world. Like, the environment that we live in makes such a big impact in our lives. And then in the Parsha, we are then creating this tabernacle, the Mishkan, which is an environment to bring God's presence. God made room for us in his world to create an environment for us. So then we are making an environment for God in our world. And this past week's Parsha also mentioned Shabbos. So we're creating space and time for God in our lives. And I think so too, every home that when we live in a home, when we live in an environment, we also create the space within it. And it's actually referred to as a Mishkan Mayat, as a mini version of this building that we built for God to be with us in our lives. And I think so too, we can't take for granted the importance of the environment that we create, that a home has, and how that impacts the children and everyone living within the home. And so that environment should be, if this follows with the 80-20, should be positive and without yelling and screaming, and good modeling of how to have a healthy, loving relationship and make room for others and show kindness, even sometimes if it feels hard, or extend ourselves in patience, or put more work into things for the other people there, just for the sake of creating that peaceful, happy environment.
Beautiful. And I think the purpose of one of the main purposes of a marriage is to create a home suitable for God's presence. And in doing so, it needs to be a home of tranquility and peace and love. And that's a place ripe for God's presence, and that's a place ripe for raising children. Beautiful.
And I think for some people, obviously everyone is different, and these are just general principles, but everyone has different nature and different ways of interacting. And I think it's important just to note that when any of this feels super challenging, to get help, right? There's lots of therapists out there, and I tend to favor those who have a Jewish perspective on things, that really shed light and values in a certain way that we know and that we're familiar with, to be able to help transform our lives and, see why am I having a hard time with X, Y, and Z? Where is it coming from? Maybe it's something in my childhood, and maybe I can go back and speak to that inner child and heal that wound instead of passing it on to others and to the next generation.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. I had another thought as to just some of the basics, I think, of raising children. And you alluded to this actually. I think you said this explicitly, which is to lead by example, to model good behavior, upright behavior, honest behavior, kind behavior, generous behavior. And it's not enough just to preach and to say how a kid ought to behave, but it's important that the kids see you doing that. So, for example, I guess as a rabbi here, if I'm telling my kid that prayer is important, it'd be important that the kids see me go to synagogue and take prayer seriously. Or if studying Torah is important, that they come home and they see me with the book open, learning, studying. Or if I say that being kind is important, it's important that they see how I treat you is with kindness. And someone comes to my door, they knock on the door and they want tzedakah, that I treat them kindly, that I offer them a drink, that I graciously give them money, that I'm not obnoxious. Like, it's vital that the kid sees that. And if I say one thing but live a different way, kids are the first ones to pick up on that, and they'll call it out. And it's not going to stick with them because they're going to think it's a joke. So it's very important that the things that we say are backed up by the actions that we do.
Yes. I think one incredibly important application of this is, do our kids realize that we enjoy spending time with them even? Right? And to model to our kids that we want to spend time with them and listen to them and do that effectively, because it's easy for us to say, I love you and I care about you, but it's much harder to really carve the time out and be fully present for them and show them and demonstrate that.
Yeah. And I think, this is probably obvious, but it's harder to do that practically now than perhaps any time in human history, because now so many of us do not leave work at 5 p.m., but we take work with us in our pockets when we bring our phones home with us. And it's so easy. They designed this device in a way where it's so addictive. It's so easy to just spend your evenings on your phone with work stuff or other stupid stuff, like seeing people ski down really, really steep mountains all over the world on TikTok for hours at a time. It's easy to do that, just theoretically, but we shouldn't. And I'm talking to myself here mainly, but yeah, it's not easy to do that. You're amazing at that, and I think it's, for a lot of us, it's something really to work on. Beautiful. Okay. I think I just had one more thing on my own list of things that stood out to me about raising kids. Again, we have here a nice range of kids, and we're by no means experts, but these are just things I've learned over the years. I observed from my own parents, who are tremendous, tremendous parents, having raised 3 great, great kids, if I say so myself. And the last thing that I just wanted to speak out is something that's maybe not super intuitive. And it was phrased best by the great title of an amazing parenting book called The Blessing of a Skinned Knee. It's a great title. I'll never forget when our oldest kid was just a toddler, the age of our 3-year-old. We were in Israel. And in Israel, they have all kinds of playgrounds. And these playgrounds, they don't make them how they make them here in America. These playgrounds utilizes ladders, like steep slopes, and plenty of opportunities to fall and get hurt.
No stairs.
They don't do stairs with rails. It's literally ladders where you climb as a little 2.5-year-old. And it's terrifying. But some parents, if you look at that playground, hold their kid's hand and they take them up the ladder so that they can never, ever, 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 ever get hurt. And other parents let their little kid up, they let him into the world, They let him climb that ladder, and maybe the kid slips. Maybe he gets a boo-boo, and maybe that boo-boo's bleeding, and maybe he starts crying. Maybe he needs a Band-Aid. But you know what? That kid learned that there's danger in not being careful on that ladder, and how to climb a ladder, and how to exercise caution on a ladder, how to assess danger on that ladder. That kid has learned a lot of great things.
And how to fall.
He's learned how to fall and how to get up after falling.
Yeah.
And we live in a world today where we coddle our kids. They call something a helicopter parent. The parent who takes their kid into preschool and doesn't leave. They hover over them like a helicopter. But we need to raise our children to be resilient and to enable them to sometimes figure things out on their own. And doing so is because we love them so much, because we care so much about them. We want them to figure this out in this controlled environment of us raising them. And they should not get the easy way all the time. They should not get the things that they need and want all the time. They should learn about how to fail sometimes, how to trip, how to stumble sometimes. And we just started actually baseball season again, coaching my son in baseball with my pops. And I love about baseball is there's something called the strikeout. And in baseball, one of the awesome things about baseball is if you're one of the best players, you fail 70% of the time. So I grew up playing baseball, learning how to fail, learning that it's normal to fail. It's common to fail. It's not crazy to fail. And that was very valuable. And I think a lot of times today this gets lost, and we coddle our kids, and we hover over our kids, and we don't do them any great services by doing so. That's my piece.
Well said.
Thank you.
It's so true. So true. And it's hard to see someone that you love to fall, to get hurt. But those little boo-boos help teach kids when they're older and big things come along. And, we're not perfect. We're human beings. And sometimes we might make wrong choices, and how to deal with that and the consequences. And may the challenges, slowly, just as we grow older, things get more complicated, and may we have the resilience to work through them. Yeah. The last thing I really just wanted to share that I mentioned before also is doing the inner work. That it's so easy sometimes to just go through life and ignore who we really are, or what really makes us tick, or if we ever have a reaction to something that seems like it might be, in hindsight it's more easy to see this, but like, let's say something made me really upset, and then I realized after that my reaction was bigger than what seemed rational, that I was really reacting from an emotional place. And sometimes when there's that lack of balance between what would be the rational reaction and what the reaction is, there's something else going on there. And it's always a good idea to, when you feel ready and with someone who could support you through it, to dive into that a little bit and start on your own and get help if you need. And what else is there? We all have inner work. We're created. We're here in this world because we're here to work on ourselves and to become our best selves. And God gives us, even with beautiful, happy upbringings, there's always going to be different challenges or different things that we experience because your parents cannot and should not shield you from every single thing in life. There's things that impact us as we go along in this journey. And it's part of our job, and being here is to actually, and part of our purpose is to go work through that stuff. And by doing that, that helps make us to become more healthy individuals who can then have more healthy relationships.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So how would one start that process of putting in that work? Where do you begin? Someone's listening to this, someone in Uzbekistan. What do they do?
I'm no expert. I'm no therapist. I think the first thing just is to notice in our day-to-day lives. And it's something that, if something upsets you or you think you need work in a certain area, I'd say, first of all, to ask God for help. But when we pray, you can ask for anything in the world, including help with our own life's purpose and to finding the right messengers and, doing what we need to do to become better people. And then I think also part of it is being growth oriented and listening to good podcasts and attaching ourselves to good mentors and being open to it, I think, is honestly a big first step.
I love what you said, just to be aware of it, to wake up to it, to be sensitive to it. I imagine there's a lot of things in life that if we realized we were doing that, we would immediately stop. We'd be mortified and we'd stop. So the first thing to do before anything is like open your eyes, like wake up, listen to yourself talk and speak and understand what you're doing. And by doing so, you can understand where the work begins and how to start working on yourself and improving yourself.
Absolutely. Just listening to ourselves speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I think that will conclude today's episode of Judaism with Altitude. We are back. And we're delighted to be back. Stay tuned for next episode coming at you in a week with God willing, a special guest. And please make sure you like and you subscribe. And we also love finding out more about our listeners. Please drop a message where you're listening from. Are you in Uzbekistan? Are you in Chile? Or are you in New Zealand? Please tell us.
And if you have any topics or questions that you would like us to address, we would love to hear from you as well.
Indeed. Signing off from Judaism with Altitude.